Okay, welcome back. We are continuing the Exeter campaign. I've updated the instructions for ChatGPT and hoping it reflects. So what I did was had it make a updated prompt to the last one before the session closure with the new instructions. So let's listen to what it has to say. This is where we technically left off.
Certainly. Here's how the last narrative prompt before the session closure would look with the updated custom instructions. Chamber of Fallen Kobolds. Time of day, around 3:15 p.m. The group stands in a wide chamber, littered with the bodies of a dozen dead kobolds. The air is thick with the metallic scent of blood, and the faint sound of dripping water echoes through the space. Mars crouches beside one of the kobolds, his sharp eyes scanning the bodies. But the chaotic scene offers no clear answers. Kaelin glances at the rest of the group, her daggers drawn. Something tore through them. Quick, clean, and brutal. Could be a drake, or worse. Whatever it is, we might be walking into its den. Brock reappears from the tunnel behind, hefting his great axe as he surveys the carnage. Beast's back in the water. Looks like I missed some fun here. What in the hell's happened? Lareth smirks, his bow at the ready. We were about to ask the same thing. Something ripped through these kobolds, and it didn't leave much behind. The group turns toward the path ahead, the faint glow of the vault's direction casting long shadows across the bodies. The kobold's map comes to mind, its warnings about tribute and flames weighing heavily on their thoughts. Options. Investigate further. Survival or Arcana DC 14. Search for clues about what killed the kobolds. Proceed cautiously toward the vault. Stealth or Perception DC 13. Avoid detection while heading toward the warden's vault. Set a defensive position. Prepare for a potential ambush or return of the creature responsible for the slaughter. Skill check. Who takes the lead?
Okay, so that's how it should be moving forward with my updated instructions. Now, I will be changing the title for this campaign, not the Exeter part, but the type of RPG this is. It is an AI RPG, but I'm noticing because I've hacked the story a few times, this is becoming a cooperative AI RPG. So I will try to figure out what to call it, but most likely it'll be co-op RPG, co-op AI RPG, because I do like to, again, influence the AI at some points to just kind of make it a tad more exciting in certain parts, and it's been helping. I'd say the past couple episodes have been fantastic. I've been really enjoying it when we do those little hacks. So I have a hack right here in mind for the start. So let's begin. While Brock has arrived, the team suddenly hears a noise. Out from one of the hallways, a badly beaten, bruised Drake stumbles forward, looking at the team, coughs out blood, and collapses. It appears he has a spear in his back. Okay, so there's the twist I was thinking about.
Certainly. Here's how the last narrative prompt.
Chamber of Fallen Kobolds. Time of day, around 3:20 p.m. The tense silence of the chamber is broken by a faint, labored scraping sound echoing from one of the side hallways. The team turns sharply, weapons raised, as a shadow stumbles into the light. It's a drake, its scaled body battered and bruised, its breathing ragged. A jagged spear juts from its back, and dark blood drips onto the stone floor with each step. The drake's glowing eyes lock on the group for a moment before it collapses heavily to the ground, letting out a pitiful, gurgling growl. It coughs violently, splattering blood onto the stone, then lies still, its sides heaving with shallow breaths. Kaelin steps forward cautiously, her daggers drawn but low. What in the nine hells? That thing's barely alive. Thrain grips his hammer tightly. Looks like it got into a fight it couldn't win. But what's strong enough to do that to a drake? Mars moves to the side, scanning the shadows of the hallway the drake emerged from, his bow ready. Whatever did this, it's not far. And it's strong enough to fight a drake and win. The drake lies motionless, its blood pooling beneath it, but its glowing eyes flicker faintly as if it's still conscious. The spear embedded in its back appears crudely made, but the force used to drive it in must have been immense. Options. Approach the drake cautiously. Investigate the wounds and spear to learn more about its attacker. Prepare for an ambush. Assume whatever injured the drake might be close behind. Tend to the drake. Medicine check. District of Columbia 14. Attempt to
Okay, so I have an idea what might have done this to the Drake, but let's keep going here. I'll probably have to do two of these at the same time. So Mars tells the others to prepare for a potential ambush while he will investigate the Drake cautiously.
Chamber of Fallen Kobold Day, around 3:25 p.m. Mars raises a hand to signal the group. Everyone, get ready. If something strong enough to do this is out there, it might be following its prey. Stay sharp. Kayla nods, moving to cover one of the exits with her daggers ready. Thrain plants himself firmly near the center of the room, his hammer raised, while Lareth nocks an arrow and scans the shadows. Meanwhile, Mars approaches the drake cautiously, his bow lowered but ready to draw at a moment's notice. The drake's breathing is shallow, each rise and fall of its chest accompanied by faint, wet growls. The spear embedded in its back is rough and primitive, but its placement suggests whoever wielded it knew how to strike to kill. Marja, Investigation DC 13, to learn more about the drake's condition and its attacker. Let me know his role. While Mars investigates,
Nice.
the rest of the team remains on high alert. Any sound or movement from the hallways could trigger action.
18 plus 2 on the investigation roll.
Mars's investigation roll 20. Mars kneels beside the drake, carefully examining its wounds and the spear lodged in its back. The spear is crudely crafted but effective, likely forged by kobold hands. The angle of the wound suggests the drake was struck while retreating. Whoever attacked it was either highly skilled or extremely desperate. The drake's scales bear deep gashes and burns, likely from magic or fire. These injuries don't match the spear's craftsmanship, hinting that the drake's attacker wasn't working alone. Mars also notices faint traces of soot and ash on its body, similar to the residue found on the kobold's weapons earlier. The drake's glowing eyes flicker weakly, and it lets out a faint, rumbling growl, almost as if it's trying to communicate something but lacks the strength. Kaelin whispers from her position near the hallway. What did you find, Mars? Anything that tells us who or what did this? Mars's findings. 1. The spear is kobold-made, but the burns and gashes suggest multiple attackers or a larger magical force. 2. The drake was likely fleeing when it was struck down, which means its attackers might be nearby. 3. The soot and ash match the kobold activity observed earlier, tying the incident to their presence. Options. 1. Try to communicate with the drake. Animal hand.
Okay, let's before speaking to the Drake or communicating with it, Mars will look down the hallway to make sure nobody is coming. Does he hear anything? Does he hear anything? Hmm. I'm really glad it tracks the time like that because it kind of helps. It helps with the narrative. Like if it's getting late,
Chamber of Fallen Kobolds.
if it gets late, then the team is going to start to feel, obviously, worn out.
Chamber of Fallen Kobolds. Time of day, around 3:30 p.m. Mars glances down the hallway where the Drake stumbled from, his elven ears straining to catch any sounds of approaching danger. The faint dripping of water echoes through the corridor, but beyond that, the passage seems unnervingly quiet. The lack of noise doesn't necessarily mean the group is safe. It could mean whatever attacked the Drake is waiting in ambush or has already moved further into the mines. Skill check. Mars can roll, Perception, DC 13, to detect any subtle movements, breathing, or signs of life down the hallway.
Holy crap.
Let me know the result.
Mars perception roll of 18 plus 4. Mars perception roll. Success.
Mars's perception roll, 22. Mars listens
Did he
carefully,
laugh at
his
me?
elven senses attuned to even the faintest disturbances. At first, the corridor seems still, but then he hears it, a faint rhythmic scraping sound, like claws dragging against stone. It's coming from deeper in the hallway, moving slowly but steadily toward the chamber. Whatever it is, it's not rushing, but it's close enough to make the hairs on the back of his neck stand up.
Uh-oh.
Mars turns back to the group, keys them now, his voice low and urgent. Something's coming. Slow, deliberate. It's not rushing, but it's definitely headed this way. Kaelin tightens her grip on her daggers. Then we don't have long to figure out what we're doing here. The Drake on the floor growls faintly again, its glowing eyes flickering as it struggles to lift its head. Options. 1. Attempt to communicate with the Drake quickly. Animal handling or insight, DC 14. Learn what it knows before the threat arrives. 2. Set up an ambush. Use the terrain and the group's positioning to prepare for whatever is approaching. 3. Fall back. Move to a safer position, avoiding direct confrontation.
Got plus 4 for both.
What's Mars's decision?
Let's do insight. Plus 4. Good rolls today so far. That beats the difficulty. Insight 16.
Mars's insight roll, 16. Mars crouches near the Drake, his sharp gaze locking with its flickering, glowing eyes. There's an intelligence behind its pain, a desperate attempt to communicate. The faint growls and the way its head tilts toward the hallway suggest it's trying to warn them. The Drake's claws weakly scrape the floor, leaving faint marks that seem almost deliberate. Mars pieces together its intent. Whatever is coming isn't just dangerous, it's something the Drake fears deeply. Kaelin steps closer, keeping her voice low. What do you think it's trying to say? Mars glances toward the hallway and back at the Drake. It's scared of whatever's coming. That's enough for me to know this isn't just another kobold. We need to be ready. Options. 1. Set up an ambush. Use the terrain to prepare for whatever's approaching. 2. Fall back to regroup. Avoid direct confrontation and find a better position. 3. Stay and engage directly. Hold the line and face the threat head-on as it enters the chamber. What's the group's call?
Mars will tell the others to all back up, form a line with all weapons drawn and ready, waiting for whatever is approaching to show itself. That's a lot. Wow, it's really going. Okay.
Chamber of fall, time of day around 3:35 p.m. Mars rises from his crouch, his bow already in hand, and gestures sharply to the group. Form a line, weapons ready. We wait here and see what comes through. Whatever it is, we hold this position. Kaelin nods, stepping into place beside Mars, her daggers glinting faintly in the dim light. Good call. Everyone stay sharp. We don't let it catch us off guard. Thrain plants his feet firmly, raising his hammer in a defensive stance. Let it come. I'm ready. Lareth takes a position toward the back, his short bow nocked and drawn. If it's big, aim for the legs. If it's fast, aim for the head. Either way, we take it down quick. The group's defensive line, front line, Thrain and Kaelin melee ready. Midline, Mars, ranged bow, and Lareth, short bow. Support, Brock, keeping a strong rear guard if needed. The rhythmic scraping sound grows louder, reverberating through the hallway as the tension thickens. A faint,
Huh.
glowing light begins to flicker from the corridor, accompanied by a low, guttural growl. From the darkness emerges a towering figure, a burned and blackened kobold, its eyes glowing with unnatural light. It drags a massive, jagged weapon behind it, sparks flying where it scrapes against the stone. A faint heat radiates from its body, and wisps of smoke curl from its cracked scales.
Wow.
Behind it, smaller kobolds scurry, their movements erratic and fearful, as though they are being driven forward against their will. Kalen mutters, "What in the hells?" The creature stops just outside the chamber, raising its head to let out a bone-chilling roar. Options. 1. Initiative roll. Engage immediately as the creature and its kobolds charge forward. 2. Attempt intimidation or diplomacy, DC 15. Stall the creature to gain a strategic edge. 3. Focus on the smaller kobolds.
Oh,
Try to scatter or eliminate them before engaging the
I have
leader.
an idea.
What does the group do?
I've had this item for some time while we enter these mines, and it's about time I use it. The horn. I'm going to use the horn, see what happens. Before combat, Mars decides to use the horn he picked up some time ago from one of the kobolds and use it to see if it distracts the minions. This might be clever, this might be not so good.
Chime of day. Time of day. Around 3:40 p.m. As the towering, burned kobold growls and prepares to advance, Mars quickly pulls the signaling horn from his pack. "Let's see if this messes with them," he mutters, raising the horn to his lips and blowing a sharp, echoing note. The sound reverberates through the chamber and down the hallway, the tone unmistakably kobold-like. The smaller kobolds freeze, their frantic movements halting as they glance at each other, confused. Some take hesitant steps back, their fear of the horn's meaning outweighing their loyalty to the leader. Even the towering kobold falters for a moment, its glowing eyes narrowing as it processes the sound. It growls deeply, whipping its jagged weapon toward the smaller kobolds and bellowing something in Draconic. A clear command to ignore the distraction and press forward. The smaller kobolds are now hesitant, their movements slower and less coordinated. They may even flee if pressured further. The leader is briefly distracted but quickly regains focus on the group, its anger clearly mounting. Kalen smirks, daggers at the ready. "Nice move, Mars. Looks like they're rattled." Options. 1. Attack immediately. Take advantage of the kobold's hesitation and the leader's brief distraction to strike first. 2. Intimidate the smaller kobolds further, DC 13. Use the distraction to scatter them completely. 3. Focus on the leader. Engage the burned kobold directly before it can rally its minions.
Hmm.
What's Mars's and the group's next move?
Well, Brock is in the back, so I wanted to do, excuse me, intimidation, but if he's in the back, it's not going to be too effective. He's too far. He could walk up, or he could, I don't know, approach the front line. I'm sorry, he's not in the back. He's actually, yeah, he is in the back. The arrow, our rangers are in the middle. So I think we will attack. Mars will attack first with his longbow at the leader. Long longboat. He throws a longboat at the leader, crushing him against the wall, killing him instantly. Game over. Oh my gosh.
Chamber of Fey around 3:45. Mars wastes no time. With the smaller kobolds still hesitant
Oops.
and the leader momentarily distracted, he raises his longbow, takes aim at the towering burned kobold and lets loose an arrow. Roll for attack. 1d20 plus 5 for the longbow. And let me know the result.
Okay, let's roll for that attack. 18 plus, that's definitely a hit. Holy crap. 18 plus 7 for attack. 7 damage.
Mars attack roll 25 Mars's arrow flies true, streaking through the air and striking the burned kobold leader in a weak spot near its collar. The impact causes the creature to stagger back slightly, letting out a guttural growl of pain. Roll for damage, 1d8 plus 3 for the longbow, and let me know the result.
Okay, let's do another narrative hack. Another story hack. I rolled damage of 7, but with the arrow hitting the creature, a strange shadowy energy leaves the body, as if it's blood but floating up into the ceiling. Oh man, okay, we'll just have to use the other
Chamber
rules.
of Fallen Kobolds. Time of day, around 3:50 p.m. Mars's damage, 7 total. The arrow strikes the burned kobold leader squarely near its collar, embedding itself deep into the creature's flesh. A low, guttural growl escapes its mouth, but what follows is far more unsettling. Instead of blood, a shadowy, inky energy seeps from the wound, swirling upward in defiance of gravity. The dark essence twists and writhes, disappearing into the shadows of the cavern ceiling. The smaller kobolds freeze completely, their glowing eyes wide with terror as they glance at their leader. They begin chittering frantically in Draconic, words barely coherent but laced with fear. Whatever just left the leader's body seems to have shaken their loyalty. The leader, however, straightens with a roar, as if the shadow's release brought renewed strength. Its jagged weapon sparks violently against the stone as it raises the blade and locks its glowing eyes on Mars.
Uh-oh.
Kalen whispers, "What in the 9 hells was that? This thing's not just a kobold, it's something else entirely." Thrain steps forward, hammer raised. "Whatever it is, it's still standing, and it's coming for us." Effect of the shadowy energy. The smaller kobolds are now panicked, unsure whether to fight or flee. The burned kobold.
Okay, so let's attack the leader, or the leader sends its minions after us because of that move. Let's roll traditional initiative. We'll just do a straight regular combat sequence encounter after we get the first hit. Oh, we'll see. I always doubt the Python will work because perhaps the context length window we have for GPT is so overwhelmed right now from how long this chat's been going. Here's the scroll bar. This is everything we've been doing since I started this campaign. It goes all the way up here. All of this is actively being looked at least most of it. I think GPT 4.0 has a 128K context window. I could be, I don't know if they increased it, but
It
let's see.
seems there's an issue with rolling the initiatives.
Yep.
Let's manually approximate the initiative order. 1. Mars, roll needed from
Oh, I
you.
forgot Brock.
2. Kalen. 3. Larith. 4. Thrain. 5. Burned kobold leader. 6. Smaller kobolds. Please roll for Mars's initiative, and I'll finalize the turn order.
So 15, 13. Okay. Mars 15, Brock 13. Excuse me. Sorry, I'm coming down on something.
Final initiative order. 1. Mars. 15. 2.
Okay, let's focus on leader. Attack. Nice. Mars will use longbow. Attack roll of 22 total.
Mars attack roll 22 hit.
Looks like
Mars takes another steady aim at the burned kobold leader, his longbow pulling taut before releasing another deadly arrow. The shot flies true, striking the creature as it snarls in defiance. Roll for damage, 1d8 plus 3 for the longbow, and let me know the result.
damage of 8.
Mars attack roll 22 hit. Mars takes another steady aim at the burned kobold leader, his longbow pulling taut before releasing another deadly arrow. The shot flies true, striking the creature as it snarls in defiance. Roll for damage, 1d8 plus 3 for the longbow, and let me know the result.
Oh, I didn't see it. This is not valid.
Mars's
Okay.
damage, 8 total. The arrow strikes the burned kobold leader squarely in its chest, embedding deep between its cracked scales. The creature lets out a guttural roar, black smoke seeping from its wound and rising into the air like before. Its movements falter slightly, but the glowing fire in its eyes burns brighter, as if fueled by its own pain. Kalen nods sharply. Good hit, Mars. Keep it up, we're wearing it down. Kalen's turn. Kalen moves in swiftly toward the leader, her daggers gleaming as she targets the weakened foe. Kalen's attack rolls. Main hand, rolling 1d20 plus 5 right pointing arrow 16, hit. Offhand, rolling 1d20 plus 5 right pointing arrow 14, hit. Damage rolls. Main hand, 1d4 plus 3, rolling right pointing arrow 4 plus 3 equals 7 damage. Offhand, 1d4, rolling right pointing arrow 3 damage. Total damage, 10. Kalen's daggers flash as she cuts into the burned kobold leader, carving through its cracked hide. The creature staggers, more shadowy energy seeping from its body, but it remains standing, its fiery gaze fixed on the group. Next up, Lareth. What's his plan? Fire at the leader, target the smaller kobolds, or take another action?
Lareth is your character. You decide. Not lyrics. I think that's great. Let's gonna start singing a song.
Lareth's turn. Lareth, seeing the burned kobold leader faltering, raises his shortbow and takes careful aim. Let's finish this thing before it does something worse. He calls, loosing an arrow toward the leader. Lareth's attack roll. Rolling 1d20 plus 6 right pointing arrow 14 plus 6 equals 20, hit. Damage roll, 1d6 plus 4. Rolling right pointing arrow 5 plus 4 equals 9 damage. The arrow strikes the burned kobold leader in the shoulder, and the force sends it staggering backward. More shadowy energy pours from its body, swelling chaotically before dissipating into the air. The leader drops to one knee, its jagged weapon scraping the stone, but it roars in defiance, refusing to fall completely. Brock's turn. Brock is up next, with the burned kobold leader heavily weakened but still standing. The smaller kobolds remain hesitant and panicked, chittering nervously in the background. What does Brock do? Charge the leader, target the smaller kobolds, or take
Yep.
another action?
Not the leader.
Let me know.
Brock will jump in and strike the leader with his great axe. Axe. Wow. I'm wondering if we can try 4.0 mini, which is faster, but I don't think it's as
Brock's turn, great axe attack.
smart.
Fueled by determination, Brock charges at the burned kobold leader, his great axe raised high. With a powerful swing, he brings the weapon down toward the weakened creature. Roll for attack. 1d20 plus 5 for the great axe, and let me know the result.
Let's experiment here. I'm going to switch off to the 4.0 mini, which is all the way down here. Give it a shot. If not, we'll go back and we'll stick with 4.0. Attack roll of 15 plus 5. If it's a new model, I'm guessing it'll take just a second to about the same speed. A little faster.
Brock's attack roll, 20, hit. Brock's great AXE slams down with tremendous force, striking the burned kobold leader squarely in the chest. The creature roars in pain as the blade sinks deep into its already wounded body.
10.
Roll for damage, 1d12 plus 3 for the great AXE, plus 2 for rage if applicable, and let me know the result.
Damage of 10. It's a bit faster, it seems.
Brock's damage, 10 total. Brock's great axe cleaves through the burned kobold leader, the strike deep enough to sever its spine. The creature lets out one final, horrific roar before crumbling to the ground, its body writhing in shadowy energy before it falls still. The smaller kobolds, seeing their leader fall, hesitate. Their glowing eyes flicker with panic, and they begin to back away, chittering in fear. The terror they once had of their leader is now directed at the group. Combat over. The group has successfully defeated the burned kobold leader, and the remaining kobolds are clearly frightened, but they haven't yet fled. Looting options.
Okay, so this is another, we'll do another narrative twist here. Despite the death of the leader, the shadowy energy that has been compiling at the top of the ceiling envelopes the entire team, clouding their minds, trying to take over the team, basically. That was my idea, at least since the first strike.
Time of day, around 3:55 p.m. As the last breath leaves the burned kobold leader's body, something unsettling happens. The shadowy energy that had been leaking from the leader's wound continues to swirl, gathering above the group like a dark storm cloud. The dark tendrils of shadow writhe and twist, growing larger and more oppressive. The air grows colder, and the shadows seem to absorb the light around you. Before anyone can react, the swirling darkness envelops the entire group. A sudden pressure fills their minds, a heavy, unnatural weight pushing down on their thoughts and vision.
Wisdom.
Skill check. Wisdom saving throw, DC 15, to resist the mind-clouding effect of the energy.
Yes.
Each character must roll to determine if they can resist the overwhelming shadow's influence. Let me know the results.
That's awesome. I love it. I think this is our first saving throw. Could be, I don't recall, maybe a first or second, but let's do it for both characters. Oh my gosh. Oh crap. 3. Critical fail for Mars. After all those good rolls, we fail a saving throw. Wisdom. And not so good. Yeah, neither. Okay, that's a complete failure. So 1 plus 2, 5. All right. Mars, wisdom saving throw of 1 plus 2. Brock, saving throw of 5. Ah, that's a critical fail.
Mars' wisdom saving throw, 3. Brock's wisdom saving throw, 5. Both Mars and Brock struggle against the overwhelming shadowy energy. The dark cloud wraps around their minds, clouding their thoughts and blurring their senses. Their vision becomes distorted, and their connection to the world around them feels tenuous. Mars feels a deep, unshakable fear grip him as the shadows whisper unintelligible words. Brock's thoughts are clouded with rage, but it is not the focused kind he is accustomed to. Everything feels out of control.
Okay. Don't roll, you just decide.
Time of day, around 4 p.m. As the shadowy energy envelops the group, each member struggles to maintain their focus. Kaelin, with her sharp mind, shakes off the effects of the cloud, her resolve stronger than most. She manages to retain clarity and stays alert, gripping her daggers tighter. Lareth is also unaffected, his practiced calm allowing him to push through the disorienting force. He keeps his eyes on the surroundings, watching for danger. Thrain, ever the stalwart fighter, feels a surge of disorientation, but his pure willpower fights against the influence, and he remains grounded. Mars and Brock, however, are not as fortunate.
Gee,
The shadows
thanks.
cloud their minds, leaving them struggling to focus and stay connected with the group. Mars feels like he's sinking into an abyss, his thoughts fragmented, while Brock's fury grows uncontrollably, his vision clouded with rage. Current status: Kaelin, Lareth, and Thrange are unaffected and can act normally. Mars and Brock are disoriented and will have disadvantage on their next actions. Options: 1. Kaelin, Lareth, and Thrain attempt to snap Mars and Brock out of their disorientation, insight or medicine check, DC 14. 2. Press forward despite the shadowy influence, continue toward the vault while managing the mental fog. 3. Wait for the cloud to dissipate. Take a moment to regain composure and see if the shadowy influence weakens. What's the group's next move?
If I were to roleplay this, I would say Mars is seeing past visions of his most difficult times, perhaps since childhood, seeing death, and Brock is is enraged and striking at anyone around him. Kobolds, allies. That's how I can. That's how I'm picturing the scene unfolding. Mars dropping to his knees and like he's just seeing visions of his past, his most unwelcoming past events, suppressed memories, stuff like that.
Time of day, around 4:05.
Let's see how this
As the
unfolds.
shadowy cloud invades their minds, Mars's world warps. His vision blurs, and he is suddenly thrust back into the darkest corners of his past. The faces of lost friends and foes alike flash before his eyes. Images of death and destruction, memories of battles fought long ago, moments of fear and helplessness. The faces of his family, lost to violence, flash before his eyes. His heart pounds as the shadowy energy twists these memories, distorting them into nightmares. For a moment, Mars is lost in the past, unable to separate reality from the phantoms of his mind. The disorienting visions pull him further into himself, leaving him frozen, as if trapped in a dream of violence and loss. Brock, on the other hand, is consumed by rage. The shadows cloud his vision, but the anger burning in his chest drowns out any sense of reason. He lashes out, his great axe swinging wildly at the air, striking anything near him. His mind is clouded, and the rage he's known in battle twists into something uncontrollable. The kobolds, still near the entrance of the chamber, freeze in terror at the sight of the enraged Brock, but his rage is indiscriminate. He charges toward them, swinging his axe without warning, fury pouring from him like a storm. Kaelin and Lareth exchange a glance. We have to calm them down before they hurt each other, or us, Kaelin says, her voice tense. Options: Kaelin and Lareth attempt to calm Mars and Brock, insight, medicine, or animal handling checks, DC 15. Kaelin and Lareth defend themselves and incapacitate Brock to stop him from attacking allies and enemies alike. 3. Allow Brock and Mars to run wild, hoping that they'll regain composure on their own. What does the group do?
It seems to think that Kalen, and Lareth are characters that I control. So let's go back to 4.0 just for now. Okay. Anyways, let's see. Kalen and Lareth are your characters. What do they do as my characters continue to struggle with their own actions? I know there's a third character we're forgetting. There's
Time of
Thrain.
day, around 4:10 p.m. Kaelin and Lareth exchange a quick, urgent glance. The shadowy energy in the air thickens as Mars and Brock spiral into chaos. Kaelin clenches her jaw. All right, Lareth, I'll handle Mars. You focus on stopping Brock before he cuts us all down. Lareth nods, pulling his bowstring taut. If I'm stopping Brock, it's going to hurt. Kaelin's action. Kaelin moves toward Mars, keeping her daggers lowered as she steps into his field of view. She speaks in a calm but firm tone, trying to cut through the haze. Mars, it's not real. None of it. You're here with us. Focus on my voice. Skill check. Kaelin rolls Insight DC 15 to try and break through to Mars. Result. Success. Kaelin's words seem to pierce the fog clouding Mars's mind. The visions begin to blur, and he feels a faint anchor pulling him back to reality. His breathing steadies, though the memories still linger at the edge of his consciousness. Lareth's action. Lareth turns his attention to Brock, who swings his great axe wildly, the blade carving into the stone floor and sending smaller kobolds scrambling. Lareth takes aim, his voice tense. Brock, you're swinging at shadows. We're your allies. Snap out of it. Skill check. Lareth rolls Persuasion DC 15 to reason with Brock while keeping him at a distance. Result. Fail. Brock's rage drowns out Lareth's voice entirely.
Interesting.
With a roar, Brock charges toward him, his great axe raised high. Lareth, realizing Brock isn't listening, looses a warning shot aimed near Brock's feet to throw him off balance. The arrow strikes the ground with a sharp crack, and Brock hesitates for just a moment, enough for Thrain to step in. Thrain's action. Thrain, ever the sturdy defender, moves to intercept Brock. That's enough, dwarf. You're swinging at your friends. He steps into Brock's path, raising his hammer to block the next strike. Strength contest. Brock rolls with disadvantage due to his clouded mind, while Thrain rolls normally to restrain him.
Okay.
The chamber remains tense as Kaelin and Lareth fight to keep the group together. Meanwhile, the shadowy energy swirling above continues to stir, its presence heavy and ominous. What do Mars and Brock do next as Kaelin and Lareth struggle to regain control?
Okay, so it's a strength check, I guess. So disadvantage. 15. 6. Okay. Brock rolled disadvantage for strength check, got 6. Wrote disadvantage. He pulled out a letter, wrote an apology, recorded a YouTube video.
Strength contest result. Brock's roll, 6. Disadvantage. Thrain steps in with practiced ease, his warhammer raised defensively. As Brock charges, swinging wildly, Thrain catches the haft of the great axe with his own weapon and shoves Brock back with a firm, controlled motion. Enough! Thrain bellows, his voice echoing through the chamber. Snap out of it, dwarf. This isn't you. Brock stumbles back slightly, his grip on the great axe tightening as the shadows in his mind resist. For a moment, it seems like his fury will reignite, but Thrain's voice cuts through just enough to keep Brock from lashing out again. He remains standing, seething but no longer charging forward. Mars's state. Kaelin's steady voice begins to pull Mars further from the haunting visions. His breathing slows, and the images of death and destruction blur, replaced by the dim light of the cavern and the faces of his companions. The shadowy fog remains, but Mars feels more grounded now, able to see through the haze. The chamber status? Brock, held back by Thrain, still struggling to fully shake the influence of the shadow. Mars, grounded enough to act, though the shadows linger in his thoughts. Kaelin and Lareth, on high alert, watching both the team and the ominous energy swirling above. The shadowy mass in the ceiling continues to churn, its movements chaotic and menacing. The remaining kobolds cower in the background, too terrified to act. Options for the group. Focus on breaking the shadow's influence completely. Attempt further saving throws or actions to dispel the remaining energy. 2. Investigate the shadowy mass, arcana or religion, DC 15. Determine what is fueling the entity and how to stop it. 3. Press forward toward the vault. Escape the chamber and leave the shadow behind, hoping its influence doesn't follow. What does the group do next?
Can Mars try to break the influence the shadow has over Brock, his friend?
Time of day, around 4:15. Mars, now partially free of the shadow's influence, takes a deep breath, steadying himself. He turns to Brock, who stands seething and gripped by unnatural rage, held at bay only by Thrain's intervention. The shadows swirling above seem to pulse, feeding off Brock's turmoil. Mars steps forward cautiously, his voice firm but calm. Brock, it's me. Look at me.
Nice.
Whatever's in your head isn't real. You're stronger than this. You've stood against worse. Don't let some shadow get the better of you. Skill check. Mars can roll insight. Time of
Okay.
day, around...
All right. Mars rolled a 16 for insight.
Mars's insight roll. 16. Mars's words cut through the haze clouding Brock's mind like a beacon in the darkness. Brock's grip on his great axe loosens slightly, and the fiery rage in his eyes begins to dim. The shadows swirling around his thoughts flicker and dissipate, leaving a cold clarity in their wake. Brock exhales sharply, his shoulders sagging as he finally regains control. His vision clears, and he sees Mars standing before him, unwavering. The weight of what just happened sinks in. Mars, Brock growls, his voice gravelly but steady. I didn't mean to. Mars places a hand on Brock's shoulder. I know, it wasn't you. Whatever this shadow is, it's trying to tear us apart. We can't let it win. Status update. Freed from the shadow's influence, but shaken. Fully grounded, now focused on the situation at hand. Kaelin lowers her daggers, letting out a relieved sigh. Good work, Mars. I thought we'd have to knock him out before he calmed down. Thrain steps back, his hammer still at the ready, but no longer raised. Glad you're back, Brock. Now let's figure out what that thing is before it tries anything else. Options for the group. 1. Investigate the shadowy mass, arcana or religion, DC 15. Determine its source and how to dispel it. 2. Focus on recovering and regrouping. Take a short moment to regain composure before acting further. 3. Press toward the vault. Leave the chamber quickly and avoid further confrontation with the shadow. What's the group's next step?
Mars, while he recollects himself, tells the others to keep the kobolds away, despite their harmlessness, and rolled an 18 Arcana to investigate the shadowy mass, feeling like he's encountered it before many years ago. Wow, that's a lot.
Chamber of Fallen Kobolds. Time of day around 4:20 p.m. Mars steadies himself, his bow lowered but ready. His sharp eyes dart between the cowering kobolds and the swirling shadowy mass above. Keep those kobolds away, he tells the group firmly. They may look harmless now, but they're still part of this. His voice carries authority, and the group moves to form a defensive line, keeping the panicked kobolds from getting close. Turning his attention to the mass above, Mars narrows his eyes, searching his memories for answers. The swirling, shadowy energy feels unnervingly familiar, its dark tendrils reminiscent of something he encountered in the distant past. Arcana roll, 18. Success. Mars recalls a legend whispered among his people, stories of the Bound Veil, a corrupted magical phenomenon. These shadowy energies were believed to be remnants of ancient, failed enchantments, spells intended to bind immense power to mortal vessels. When the enchantments failed, they left behind unstable echoes of magic, capable of corrupting minds and driving creatures to madness. The shadowy mass above them fits the description perfectly. It isn't a creature. It's a lingering magical echo, fueled by the pain, fear, and death in the area. The more chaos and conflict it absorbs, the stronger and more volatile it becomes. Mars speaks quickly, urgency in his tone. This thing, it's called a Bound Veil. It's not alive, but it's dangerous. It feeds off pain and fear, using them to grow stronger. That's why it's here. Because of the kobolds, the leader, all the bloodshed. If we don't stop it, it'll only get worse, Kalen grimaces. So how do we stop something that's not alive? Mars's memories offer a glimmer of hope. The veil can be weakened or dispersed by disrupting its source, purging the fear and conflict it feeds on, or using concentrated magic to shatter its hold. Options. 1. Purge the fear. Disperse the veil by intimidating or scattering the kobolds, intimidation or persuasion, DC 13. 2. Use concentrated magic, focus any magical energy the group has, or manipulate items to destabilize the veil, Arcana, DC 15. 3. Physically disrupt the area. Attempt to break the veil by attacking the surrounding environment and forcing it to dissipate, athletics or strength, DC 14. What's Mars's next call?
I have an idea. Let's see. So I want to take one part from here to copy and save into my notes, mainly backstory. So let's see. Paste. There we go. There we go. So, not sure what skill check this will require, but Mars calmly urges the team to set their weapons down and to sit calmly with a clear mind. I'm curious if the AI will see what I'm trying to do here. I'm sure it will. Calmly, the keyword.
Chamber of Fallen Kobolds around 4:25 p.m. Mars takes a deep breath, steadying his voice as he addresses the team. Everyone, listen to me. This thing, the veil, it feeds on chaos, fear, and violence. If we want to stop it, we need to take away its fuel. That means no more fighting, no more anger. Put your weapons down, sit, and clear your minds. Kalen looks at him sharply, her daggers still in hand. You're saying we just sit here? While that thing is swirling above us? Yes, Mars says firmly. Trust me on this. If we stay calm, it will weaken. The more we fight, the stronger it gets. Thrain grumbles, but lowers his hammer, taking a step back. I'll do it. But if this thing so much as twitches, I'm grabbing my hammer. Lareth hesitates, his bow still knocked, but he exhales and lowers it. All right, Mars. You'd better be right about this. The group's action, weapons lowered. The team sets their weapons aside, creating a unified sense of calm in the chamber. Focused minds. Each member sits or steadies themselves, focusing on clearing their thoughts and emotions. The result. The shadowy mass above seems to pulse, its movements less erratic. The oppressive weight in the air begins to lift slightly, as though the energy is losing its grip. The smaller kobolds, still cowering at the edges of the chamber, are now trembling but no longer frantic. Options for the group. 1. Urge the kobolds to calm further, persuasion DC 13. Fully neutralize the veil by calming the remaining fear in the room. 2. Continue to sit quietly. Wait to see if the veil dissipates completely. 3. Take a more active approach. Disperse the shadow by combining calm with a focused magical or physical disruption. Arcana, DC 15. What's Mars's next decision?
Mars whispers to the team that this shadowy entity is somewhat similar to the creature Brock saved. It feels endangered and needed to defend itself. Kind of.
Chamber of Fallen Kobolds, around 4:30 p.m. As the oppressive energy in the chamber begins to lessen, Mars whispers to the team, his voice calm but thoughtful. This thing, it's not just a remnant of magic. It feels like it's alive in a way, like the creature Brock saved. It's lashing out because it's endangered, trapped, feeding on fear and violence to protect itself. It doesn't know any better. Kalen glances at him, her brow furrowed. You think it's defending itself? That doesn't make it less dangerous. Mars nods. It's dangerous because we're feeding it. If we show it we're not a threat, it might stop. It's like a wild animal. You don't fight it, you don't provoke it, you give it a reason to back down. Thrain grunts but lowers his hammer further. Fine. If that's what it takes, we'll do it. But if it doesn't work... He leaves the rest of his sentence hanging, the implication clear. The group's action. The group maintains their calm and quiet stance, their weapons set aside. The energy in the room continues to pulse faintly, but its movements slow further, as though confused by the sudden lack of hostility. The smaller kobolds, sensing the shift in the group's energy, stop trembling and sit quietly, their
Kumbaya.
fear lessening. The shadowy mass flickers, the tendrils of darkness pulling back slightly, as if waiting. Options. 1. Appeal directly to the veil, insight or persuasion. Speak to it as if it's sentient, offering reassurance or peace. 2. Continue waiting in calm silence. Let the energy dissipate naturally without interference. 3. Examine the veil further. Arcana, D15. Try to understand its connection to the chamber or why it formed. What's Mars's call?
While the shadowy entity starts to dissipate, it continues to go through the ceiling as if it burns through the rock, causing the ceiling to collapse. I should say seep through the ceiling. But this is like a kumbaya moment. I can already tell.
Chamber of Fallen Kobolds. Time of day around 4:35. As the group maintains their calm, the shadowy entity begins to shrink and dissipate, its chaotic tendrils retracting into a concentrated core. But instead of vanishing completely, the energy surges upward. The shadows twist and burn, boring through the stone ceiling like acid. Cracks spread rapidly across the chamber, accompanied by a deep, rumbling groan. Kaylin's eyes widen as she looks up. The ceiling! It's collapsing. Dust and debris rain down as the cracks widen, chunks of rock falling dangerously close to the group. The smaller kobolds screech in panic, scrambling toward the exits. The chamber shudders violently, the unstable ground threatening to give way beneath their feet. Skill challenge. The group must act quickly to escape the collapsing chamber. 1. Dexterity save DC 14.
Okay, we're going to end it here. Cliffhanger. So let's do a end of session report. Let's close the session for now. XP and session notes, please. Let's see how we do. I'm surprised it still tries to do Python. It probably didn't work. I might need to put in the instructions for it to not use Python anymore. Yeah. Okay.
It seems there's an issue saving the session notes to a file. However, here are the C Session 6 notes for your reference. D&D Campaign Notes, Session 6. World Setting. Exeter, High Magic Fantasy Setting. Session Highlights. 1. The group defeated the burned kobold leader, with Mars landing significant hits and Brock delivering the final blow. Shadowy energy seeped from the leader's body, forming a swirling mass above the chamber. The smaller kobolds panicked but posed no threat, cowering as the shadow grew in power. 2. Mars identified...
Okay. So in the next episode, we're going to attempt and dodge this crumbling ceiling above our heads. So I have a theory as to why the shadowy entity would have done that. Because as in the immediate area, because we all did kumbaya with each other, the shadowy entity feeds or needs to survive off of, again, fear, chaos, rage, etc., death. So it's perhaps because we're in a dungeon or we're in these mines where it sensed something above in another tunnel or another floor above, and so it literally rent right through, like acid, but up. So that's what I had in mind when doing that little story hack. So this is really panning out to be absolutely incredible in my opinion. And that's why I was mentioning earlier that this is becoming more of a co-op AI D&D, which is completely fine in some respects. So as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.